good to see you all here. Excited to learn a little bit more about watersheds and plastics and all of those things. My name is Jennifer Wendt. I work for MRCTI. It's an association of mayors of cities along the Mississippi River, and I also work for BFA Engineering, an engineering firm. I'm in St. Louis, Missouri, so further south down the Mississippi River from you. And I'm going to talk to you about how we're working and really the effects of plastic on the river and the ocean and how it moves from land to water, kind of following up on what Kelsey talked to y'all about yesterday. Right, can y'all see my screen?
Yeah. Yes.
All right. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about this presentation is called Last Stop the Ocean. This is an hourglass that we'll talk about here in a minute. The top part is part of the United States. It's actually the Mississippi River watershed. So yesterday you talked about watersheds. We're going to move it a bit further and show how it all flows from your part all the way down to the ocean. So just to go over what Kelsey, these slides from yesterday, just to refresh your memory, a watershed funnels water. It includes all the land in the space, and it drains to rivers, lakes, and oceans, and they're everywhere. So experts know when a drop of water hits the ground, where it's going to flow into a stream, a creek, a storm drain, and then to our rivers and oceans. And this map, I know Kelsey showed this yesterday. I just wanted to show you all again. So this is Duck Creek in your area in Quad Cities. And you can see how it flows, so all of this land flows to Duck Creek, and then it flows to the Mississippi River. And that is the Mississippi River right there. And here it is kind of from further back. So here's where you all are right here. And this is showing that all the water in your area flows to the Mississippi River, and that travels all the way down here to the Gulf of Mexico. I don't know if has anybody been to the ocean?
Yeah.
All right. So right down here is where everything flows. This is the Gulf of Mexico, and then from there it flows out to the ocean. So that is where your water flows. So then see all these other rivers and creeks? These are really just the big ones, but there are so many more small ones. So if this is where your things go. So, what Kelsey was telling you yesterday, when a drop of water hits the ground, it goes to a storm drain typically, and then to your creek close to you or a river, and then it hits the Mississippi and it goes down. So that's just you all right there in Quad Cities. But if you look at the Mississippi River watershed, what drains to it, you see that, I can get my mouse to work. There it is. That all the rivers and creeks from this whole area across the country all flow down through the Mississippi River out to the Gulf and to the ocean. So just think about, when one piece of litter or one stick, anything that gets flows to your storm drain goes all the way to Mississippi. This is what happens in all of the country. It's a very big watershed. It's the largest in our country. It covers 31 states out of 50, so it's quite a big drainage system for our whole country. I'm going to go through this little cartoon here for you all. It's just talking a little bit more about what happens with litter. You can see here's a park bench, here's a chip bag and a water bottle, and the chip bag ends up on the bench, and he says, well, what will happen to us now? And the plastic bottle says, well, buddy, litter like us travels. Our last stop will probably be the ocean. So here he goes to the storm drain. And then once he's in the storm drain, he ends up in a sewer. And the can says, we're in the stormwater system. Litter falls into storm drains and rides the flow to new places. So from there, it drops out of a storm drain outlet into a creek or a stream. And so it's flowing down the river, and here it goes to the ocean. So there, once it gets to the ocean, then it's really hard to capture much. I mean, the ocean is big. Some things float on the surface, and some things some things sink to the bottom eventually once they fill with water. And so it's really hard to capture that material once it gets to that place. So here's an example of ocean plastic. So these plastics, some of them did originate from boats and from the coasts, but a lot of this material did originate from land, like right there where you are and right where I am. I'm just a few hundred miles south of you on the Mississippi River, but it all flows to the ocean. I'm going to show you a little video if I can pull this up. Sorry about this. Can y'all see the screen?
Yeah.
With the video?
Yeah.
All right. So just so I to let you know, this is out in the ocean off of Central America. It's way out there. There's not a lot of land nearby, but what happens is the ocean swirls kind of like a bathtub drain, but it doesn't drain out, but it all kind of makes its way into one big pile out in the ocean. And this is one of the places that litter gathers. This is mostly plastic pollution just floating in the ocean.
Yeah.
So once it floats to the ocean, then often it washes up on shores in islands and different areas. So our litter becomes their litter, and it's something that they have to deal with. And a lot of times when that happens, they don't have the resources like we do in our country to take care of that. And so
China's actions
it
raising
can
alarms in American farm country.
exacerbate the problem. It can make it a whole lot worse because then it never will go away. So this all looks really horrible, and you're saying, well, what am I supposed to do about it? I'm just going to talk a little bit there. Let's go back to my slideshow. So you all and we all can do a lot to reduce this problem and really try to help the problem. If you drop your trash on the ground, it can become marine litter, like we said, even if you don't live anywhere near the ocean. Litter can travel to faraway places through storm drains, streams, canals, and rivers. And along its journey, which we didn't talk about a lot, it can also affect the wildlife just right there in your area. On land when, deer or wildlife eat the grass and the trees, and there's litter in there. And then also because plastics do break down into tiny pieces, and so they don't mean to eat them, but they do, and then it's in their bodies as well. And then also, of course, fish and other wildlife and other sea creatures. So what you can do just with a few small gestures, you can create a positive change in your community and help protect your wildlife, environment, and the planet. And it is not hard to do, even though it seems like a huge problem. If all of us do our little part, then we can really make a difference. Here are some tips for living with less plastic. When you go grocery shopping with your parents, you can have them bring their own shopping bag. Make sure you use a reusable bag instead of getting a new plastic bag every time you go, because those plastic bags, they stay in the environment really forever because they just break down into tiny pieces. And they are used, I think, 12 minutes. So that is a really quick time that it's useful for the amount of time it stays in the environment. Don't try to avoid single-use plastic water bottles. Carry a reusable bottle and refill those. Bring your own cup. pack your lunch in reusable containers instead of things that you have to throw away. As you saw in the picture, the disposable straws and spoons and forks, all of those plastic things, those end up floating in the ocean. And so you can ask for none of those if you're getting takeout, or just when you're at home, try to just use the metal forks and spoons, or forks and spoons that you can wash and reuse. When your parents are buying produce, you can get those in a cloth bag, or I actually just carry them and put them on the scale and put them in my grocery bag, so then you don't have that plastic bag. A big source of plastics are our fast food and carry out. And so, you know, if you take the time to eat in, which isn't always easy, but even if you don't, then just ask for less of the utensils. And condiments like ketchups and mustards that you don't use that end up being thrown away. And then, of course, store leftovers in glass jars and in containers that can be reused instead of in disposable containers. And then the last tip is to share these with your friends. So this is a picture an artist did. This is basically showing a tap with all of the plastics coming down onto the beach. And basically the point is that, you know, if your bathtub is overflowing, if your bathtub is on full blast and it is overflowing, the first thing you do isn't to grab a mop while it's still overflowing, but to turn off the tap. You know, we always try to turn off that tap and then deal with the problem. And so what we really need to do is focus on reducing and preventing plastics from entering our environment, and even reducing the use before we get to that point of just letting it overflow. So I don't know if you all know this recycling symbol up here with the 3 arrows. That's the symbol, international symbol for recycling. But this, you know, it starts with prevention, and then reducing, and then reusing, and then recycling. So we really want to try to stop the use, prevent it before we focus on recycling. Recycling is very, very important, and you all have a great recycling system in the Quad Cities, but we really need to try to reduce our use of plastics.
Yeah, and if I could jump in here real quick too, just for us, as we're thinking about this, a lot of you are familiar with recycling, and we've already had some of those conversations. And we've got one of the premier recycling systems in our area. But I want us to start to think about these 2 words here, because you guys are going to start to kind of figure out some action and actually move into action and do those things. And so if you haven't thought about reduce and reuse, these might be 2 words you might want to write down, because this would be an area where a lot of you can actually tangibly, or actually go through and start to make a difference. We know how to recycle, but we can start to look at this, how do we reduce and reuse? And some of those tips on that previous slide might be some ideas for us to start to spark some ideas. But for us, we want to make a difference, not just learn about how to make a difference, but actually go forth and truly make a difference. And so those are 2 things that we might want to narrow some of our focus on. And so, not to interrupt your presentation, but I just want to highlight that, because that's exactly kind of where we want to start to think about some of our efforts once we continue to learn about a lot of these ideas. I'm sure some of our kids here have families that bring their own shopping bags, but even for me, I'm thinking about, you know, on this list, number 6, I put a lot of produce in plastic bags this weekend when I got groceries. We had a recipe we wanted to get, and we probably had 5 or 6 of those plastic bags. And I'm thinking, boy, that's an easy change. And so as we're thinking about this, you're going to develop some action plans with yourself. So I just wanted to highlight that, not to interrupt your flow there, I apologize, but it's because we plant these ideas early in our head, because you're going to be working in teams to go, this is how we're going to do it. And then you're going to go forward and do it. So be thinking about some of that.
Ms. Bernard, we have a question in about good time, Ms. Wendt, or would you like kids to hold off on questions?
I am about done, and then they can ask as many questions as they want.
Yeah. Let's have her finish up, and then what we'll do is then we can have them come up to the camera so she can hear them better. So
Fantastic.
if you don't lose your questions, write them down. If you have questions, I don't want you to forget them. Write them down. We'll have time for some Q&A.
All right, and I actually am finished with that presentation. And one thing I do want to let you all know is there's, we talk a lot about plastics and reducing plastics, and there's a lot of ways you can. And what we're really focusing on are those single-use plastics that you use for just a few minutes or use just and then get either thrown away or recycled. There's a lot of plastics that are really useful for long-term use, but we really want to try to focus on reducing those that you really don't need, and it's really just because it's the easiest thing to do. But I am open for questions and happy to discuss further. There's a little activity that I can share with you as well about doing a 1-week waste audit, but I will hold off on that, and I don't even have to talk about it today. So
Perfect. So let's do this. We're gonna, if you have some questions, what we'll do is we'll have your teacher select you. We'll have you come up. The camera's over here to the computer. We'll have you kind of stand so she can see you, and that way she knows who's talking. And for some of you, I know you have quiet voices. I know that's not all of you. If you are going to need to speak up so she can hear you, all right, so we can go ahead and answer the question. So you go up, ask your question, and then you can have a seat. And then the rest of us, if she says something important, you might want to jot that down. It might be something we can use too. So I'll let you guys pick your arsenal of mini experts here.
When we go in, would you want us to introduce yourself, say who you are, so that she can put that name to your face or that face to your name?
My name's Lily, and my question is there a way for trash to get in the ocean without the wind or a sewer drain?
Well, yes, there is. Because anything on the ground, like you saw in that watershed, whether it's, it may not even flow through the sewer drain, it may just flow straight to your creek or to your river. And then a lot of times people like to go to lakes and rivers and creeks and enjoy their time there, and they bring things, and then those can end up in the water just right there, right on the water themselves. There's a lot of ways that it could make its way there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
My name is Grace, and I'm 8 years old. My favorite color is blue. I have 2 dogs. One name's Tiki. One is named Bella, which they say is one of the happiest dogs they've seen for.
All right, what's your question, buddy?
But my questions are there too. Did you ever work at Argari, or do you? And what happens if the world is covered in trash?
I have never worked at Agari. Is that what you said?
It's coding. My dad does.
Oh, no, I have never worked there. But no, it is not covered in trash. Not the whole world is not covered in trash. And a lot of times things like paper, if they're not covered in a coating, do break down nicely, just environmentally. And a lot of things that are made of organics, like apple cores and food waste, if it's composted right, also can be break down really naturally. But it's really, at this point, we all need to do our part to reduce and prevent. And that's why y'all are here. That's why I'm here.
But what happens if the world does get covered in trash?
I don't, you know what? I do not know that. I do not know that answer. That's a really good question, but I don't know it, the answer. Maybe you guys can discuss that and see, theorize about what happens if the world's covered in trash.
Okay.
Tell her thank you.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Gavin, and I have a question. What is there a possible way if we can stop this littering?
There are ways. It really, I think that to stop littering, it has to focus on each individual, and then there are some different things that I've seen, like if you see somebody, there's a website that if you see somebody littering, then you can report them, take their picture of their car and post it online, and that you know, if somebody sees their car on there, then that might help them stop doing that. A lot of signs are helpful. And then a lot more trash cans, making sure there's trash cans set out close enough, because, you know, sometimes people can be lazy and they don't want to walk really far to a trash can. So having trash cans that aren't overfilled is really important too. But it's not just littering. A lot of times things blow out of trucks and trash cans and different things that end up on the ground as well. But there are ways.
And I think that's it. That I only had that question.
Okay, thank you. This is a good question.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Hi, my name's Lola, and I have a question for you. How is too much water polluted?
The water, well, water can be polluted in a lot of different ways, and we're just talking about plastic waste and litter, but then there's some that from chemicals that from in industry and different manufacturing. And so there are laws and regulations in place that tell the manufacturers and industries that they have to treat the water, treat their contamination before it gets to the river. So we can stop it that way. But on an individual level, we can really focus on what we're doing to really try to take a step back and reduce before it even could be considered pollution. You know, before you have to even dispose of it, let's see, do you really need it in the first place?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Real quick here too, I know we've got some other questions, but we had a pretty awesome event that just happened here in the Quad Cities just the other weekend. And too bad weather wasn't a little bit warmer for everybody. And we're just now, this is kind of our inquiry week. So we haven't dove into a lot of the stuff yet. But I mean, I know you spearheaded a lot of that work. There's a lot of people that put into that. As they're asking questions about trash and the garbage and things like that, could you share maybe just a little bit about some of the things happening here? They don't know yet about the traps and some of the stuff that's been going on, and that might further spark some ideas and maybe some other questions here as well. Because while we're learning a lot of this, our hearts a lot of times end up, you know, we're thinking about the ocean and the aquatic and the wildlife, but there's also a lot of things happening like right here. And so I didn't know if you could touch upon that maybe here real quick.
I absolutely can. I'm going to open up and share my screen again. Let me move this. Okay, so you all you all should be very proud of this. We are working, and you all in Quad Cities, and that's with MRCTI. We're working with the company, with the organization, and they're called the Commission for Environmental Cooperation. And they are really working with our whole continent of North America. And so what we're doing, the goal of this, my mouse keeps getting stuck, is to capture in these streams and creeks. So here's, you know, what Kelsey talked about yesterday. Here's Duck Creek. And here's Mississippi River. And I showed you before how everything flows. So the CEC has installed capture devices in our creeks. So this is one way that we can capture the litter before it makes its way all the way down to the Mississippi River and out to the ocean. So these are called trash traps or booms or capture devices, and they float in the river. And so there are multiple, and hopefully y'all can go out and see them sometime. Because they're in there now just till the end of this month, because they're going to pull them out so that they don't freeze. But you can see what they do. See how this material here captured after a rain. It's typically after a rain that more debris is captured. So, you know, here's a cup and some water bottles and a bucket that probably somebody didn't want to lose, but ended up on the ground and in the capture device. And here is another one here in a different creek. So what we're doing is capturing this litter and then recording it to see what we're finding so that we can figure out how to reduce this. But these are also great ways to catch the debris before it makes its way to our big waterway. So just to let you know, they've picked 3 places in the world where they put these capture devices in. One of them is in Canada, one of them is in Mexico, and the other area is the Quad Cities here in Davenport. So this is really exciting for you all, and you all have a really great team. I'm going to show one more slide. So what we're trying to do, let's see, is capture data in the traps and also on the ground. So what people did a couple weeks ago, it really was on one day, or the 14th and the 15th of October, they took their phones, and there's an app called the Marine Debris Tracker, and you can collect data on what you're finding in the environment. So in this middle picture, here's some folks, somebody collecting trash and somebody else collecting data, and so that we can see exactly what we're finding. So once everybody did that, I pulled up the data, and here you can see in this same area, here's where, let's see, is this right? Yeah, Duck Creek. It's just a different map, but here's Duck Creek, and you can see people collected data. It's kind of hard to see. I'll try to zoom in here, but they collected, and so we can see how many items they collected along the creeks and then along the river. And so what we found were the top items, and so that intent is that once we find the top items, we can figure out how to reduce them and stop them. Plastic food wrappers were the top item, other plastic bottles, cigarettes and cigars, and plastic bags. And just to mention, I mean, I hope you all don't smoke, right? You're in 2nd and 3rd grade, but if you see people that do, the filter, part of that cigarette is made of plastic. And so even though I think a lot of people don't realize it, then they throw that cigarette butt on the ground, and that is just another source of plastic ending up in our oceans and creeks. So this, you all are part of this whole project, because what we're doing is after we get all this data, we're going to be talking to students and your community about what we can do. And so your ideas are going to be really, really important in the whole project, which will go for a couple years.
Thank you for sharing that.
What do you guys think? That's a pretty powerful visual there, and we're 1 out of 3 places, or 2 other places in the world that got selected. What were the other 2 places? Canada, Mexico, and then the Quad Cities. Wow. I have a question real quickly.
Yes.
Why was the Quad Cities chosen? How did we become that one of the 3?
I don't fully know, except so the CEC is an organization for Canada, the US, and Mexico. So they wanted one in each of these countries. And Quad Cities, you all have such great enthusiasm for reducing pollution, and working with the EPA, and working with Kathy Morris and your solid waste division and your city leaders that were very, very enthusiastic about this. Quad Cities was picked, and Davenport specifically was picked after talking to each of the cities in your area. And there also, this follows up, about a year ago, we did some initial data collection through the Mississippi River Plastic Pollution Initiative, and that data also helped pick Quad Cities as the US location.
Thank you. Go ahead, Bud.
My name is Camden, and how long have you been doing your job?
I've been doing this particular job for since 2018, so 4 years, but I've been doing environmental work for about 30 years now, trying to stop contamination. I worked as a chemist in a lab doing environmental analysis on contamination before this, and worked for a sewer district. So I've been trying to stop pollution for quite some time now.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Hi, my name is Dominic, and I was wondering, does it like have to like if it's a certain temperature, does more trash get into the ocean?
Well, one thing we found when we were working along the Mississippi River is that in warmer climates, because people are outside a lot more and all through the year, then there is more litter because, when it gets cold there, you typically are inside. So you're not outside, your trash goes in your trash can. But as far as the warm weather in the water, no, but warm weather definitely gets people outside using the materials outside in the environment more.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
Just go that way.
Hi, my name is Annie, and I have 2 questions. Why is the world polluted, and how is the world polluted?
Well, there are a lot of people on this planet, and when I was young, we didn't have all of these materials that just get thrown away. This throwaway culture is what it's called, disposable culture. And so when we drank something out of a bottle, then we would take that bottle back. It would be washed and reused again. But we kind of got away from that when plastics became so readily available, and because people wanted it to be more convenient. So a lot of this we brought on ourselves because we wanted things to be easier and more convenient. So we can take that back. We can take a step back, and there's a way to stop it, but it's going to have to take all of us. And what was the other question? Was that it?
How is the world polluted?
Because of so many people using so many things on this little planet.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Alec. And what if the ocean overfills with rocks?
I don't think it can, because the rocks that are out there, we're not making new rocks. And so the rocks go to the bottom of the ocean, and so it won't cause it to overflow. They'll just stay on the bottom, and it won't rise it won't make the water level rise. So it's
Thank
okay.
you.
You're welcome.
Hi, my name is Rachel. And why did you only choose 3 places?
Only 3 places? Well, that's a very good question. When you saw the picture of the capture devices, they look really cool how they're capturing all that litter, but it costs a lot. It costs a lot of money to build one of these capture devices, put it in, and to maintain it. So it's not something that we can just do on every creek, because we just don't have the people or the money to do it. So that's why there is only 1 place in our country, in the US.
Hi, my name is Ella. And why do people make trash if it's so harmful?
Well, there's a lot of reasons, but one reason is for convenience. We all like to be able to do things quickly and easily. And so a lot of the materials that end up as trash are just for our convenience. Number 1. And number 2, there's, some of it is unavoidable. When you eat, you're going to have food scraps. And when you go to a restaurant, there'll be some food scraps. And when you drive a car, it pollutes a little bit, but we just have to try to reduce and prevent as much as we can. And then we can live sustainably, but it'll take a lot of work.
Hello, my name is Court. Why do so many lakes and rivers lead to the Mississippi?
It's just because of the geography of our country. So basically the Mississippi River is like everything kind of flows down. Everything, even if you have a hill, it's still going to find its way around the hill to flow down. It's just everything. I don't know a good example. Kind of if you fold a piece of paper and it looks pretty flat, but there's still a thing, your pencil is still going to roll down into there. And so that's how that works.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Stacy, and why is there so much plastic in the ocean?
Because when plastic was first made, it was made for very useful things in the hospitals and even the computers. There's a lot of plastic in it, and cars, there's a lot of plastic. But we started making it more and more just to use quickly and just for minutes at a time. And so, you know, we as humans need to try to take a step back and try to, you know, step out of that convenience and use things that are like a glass bottle or a metal bottle to reuse instead of just throwing away. You know, there's always plastic water bottles. That's a really good example of how you don't need to continually use something for one, you know, 5, 10, 20 minutes and then throw it away. So just need to stop using it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What would happen to wildlife if the whole ocean was covered with garbage?
Well, we're gonna hope we don't get to that point, and we won't get to the point that the whole ocean is covered in garbage. But when fish eat plastic, a lot of times because it breaks down into tiny pieces, you know, it's kind of like taking a crunchy leaf and doing this. It's just tiny little pieces that fall, right? And so they think those things are food, those little pieces of plastic, and they eat them, and then bigger fish eat them, and then we eat the fish, and then we have those plastics in our bodies too. So I don't know the answer to that question, but we're going to hope we never get to that point. That's why we're all working on this project now.
Thank you.
Jennifer, thank you for your time. I think we've got about 10 million more questions in this presentation. And that's exactly what our goal was, is to spark some curiosity and wonder and some new learning. And you've definitely done that through the visual, the presentation, the information. So we're going to debrief and reflect and take some of that and figure out some of our next steps. But we can't thank you enough for carving out time. I know we'll see you again for the other classes. But this has been really helpful and useful for us as we're starting to get our gears to turn here a little bit about learning more about the issues so we can create some solutions. So
yes, and there's something that I will share with you at some point. It's this 1-week waste audit at home, so you can really look at what's in your garbage and see what materials are in there that you really need. If they are something like a plastic fork that you didn't really need because you had another fork, or if you have plastic wrap or plastic bags, how we can kind of back up and see where that solution to reduce those materials will come from. But that'll be another time. I thank you all for listening. I enjoyed your questions.
Yeah.